The morning air in downtown Boston was damp and heavy with rain. Streets glistened like polished mirrors under the gray light, and the sound of tires cutting through puddles echoed faintly along the narrow blocks. On the corner sat a small café, usually bustling with commuters and college kids, but today it was unusually quiet. The comforting aroma of espresso clung to the air, mixing with the faint scent of wet wool coats drying near the entrance. Behind the counter, Ella worked in her usual silence. At 25, she looked younger than her age, slender, almost fragile, with pale blonde hair pulled back into a messy ponytail. Her apron was faded and had a small tear near the pocket, though she kept it tidy. She moved with deliberate care, wiping down the counter with slow strokes while the radio hummed soft jazz beneath the rhythm of rain on the glass. The calm broke with the sharp cry of a baby. The sound cut through the quiet like a siren, high-pitched and unyielding. Ella froze mid-wipe, her head turning toward the noise. In the corner of the café, a man stood beside a stroller, tall and impeccably dressed in a charcoal coat, his dark hair damp from the rain. He held a baby, no older than 10 months, whose fists were balled tightly, his face red and contorted with frustration. The child's cries grew louder, rattling the café's fragile stillness. A couple of customers shifted uncomfortably, while others chose to ignore the scene. The barista slipped into the back, leaving the man alone to struggle. He bounced the child gently, whispering something close to his ear, but it seemed only to aggravate the baby further. The little boy, Leo, as he later learned, screamed harder, thrashing against his father's chest. The man's polished exterior cracked, exhaustion carved lines into his face. Watching quietly, Ella set her cloth aside and stepped out from behind the counter. She hesitated for a heartbeat, then moved slowly toward them, careful not to startle either father or son. "Hi," she said softly. "Would you mind if I tried?" The man turned to her, startled. His features were sharp, handsome in a distant way, but there were dark circles under his eyes. He looked like a man unaccustomed to failure, yet utterly powerless in this moment. "He doesn't usually cry like this," he admitted, his voice low. "I don't know what's wrong." Ella extended her arms. "It's all right. May I?" He hesitated, then finally gave a small nod. "His name is Leo." As she drew nearer, Leo's wailing intensified, but Ella didn't flinch. She gathered him gently into her arms. Almost immediately, the child's cries faltered, breaking into hiccups, then settling into silence. He buried his face into the crook of her neck, his tiny fists unclenching as he gripped the fabric of her apron. The café itself seemed to pause with him, the patter of rain softening outside. The man, Jackson Carter, stood speechless, staring as though she had performed some impossible act. Ella swayed slightly, one hand supporting Leo's back, the other patting him with a steady rhythm. The tension in the room dissolved, replaced by a hush. From somewhere across the café, someone whispered, "He just stopped crying." "How did you do that?" Jackson asked quietly, almost in awe. "Sometimes they just need a calm heartbeat," Ella replied simply. Jackson could only watch. His son, inconsolable for 20 minutes, now slept peacefully in the arms of a stranger. Ella offered to hand him back, but Jackson shook his head quickly, as though afraid the moment would vanish if interrupted. Later, when Leo was calm again in his stroller, Jackson approached the counter to thank her. Ella had gone back to her duties, sleeves rolled to her elbows, her hands red from the chill of wiping down tables. He placed a sleek black business card on the counter. "If you ever need anything," he said with polite detachment before leaving. She glanced down at the card. Jackson Carter, CEO of Carter Dynamics. The name meant little to her, though her coworker nearly squealed when she noticed it. "That's not just anyone. He runs half the apps on my phone," her friend whispered. Ella tucked the card beneath the register and went back to her work. She had learned long ago that the richer the shoes, the colder the soul. But that wasn't the last time she saw him. Later that evening, as the café was nearly closed, the bell over the door chimed. Jackson returned, this time without the stiffness of a man used to being served. He asked her name, Ella, and then, almost reluctantly, he made an offer. His son didn't come for anyone, not even his nanny, but with her, Leo had been at peace. Would she consider spending a few hours a week with him? She refused at first. She wasn't a nanny, she explained. She didn't get involved with people who lived in different worlds. He accepted her refusal, though before leaving, he placed a small envelope on the counter. "No expectations," he said. That night, curiosity won out. Inside was a check for $2,000 and a handwritten note. "If you need help or if you just need someone to believe in you, call me. Thank you for holding him like he mattered. JC." The words struck her harder than the money. Like he mattered. No one had said that to her before. Alone in her tiny apartment, Ella pulled out a wooden box from her shelf. Inside were mementos of another baby, her son, Noah, who had lived only 6 days due to a rare heart defect. She had buried her grief in silence, never telling anyone, but holding Leo that day had awakened it all. She wept quietly, pressing a photograph to her chest. Later, she picked up Jackson's card and sent a message, "I'll help with Leo. Just part-time." 2 weeks later, Ella walked into Jackson's penthouse for the first time. The sleek, glass-walled home offered a stunning view of the Boston skyline, though she barely noticed. She was there for Leo. To her surprise, the child lit up at the sight of her, arms stretching forward, eyes bright. Their bond deepened quickly. She fed him, read to him, soothed him. He giggled freely in her presence, something he didn't do for anyone else. Jackson, initially distant, began lingering more, listening to stories of his son's day. Slowly, fragments of his guarded life slipped through, like how Leo's love for rain sounds had reminded him of his mother. One stormy evening, Ella rocked Leo to sleep on the couch. Jackson returned late, only to find them both dozing softly, the baby curled against her chest. He draped a blanket over them gently, his hand lingering to brush a strand of hair from her face. For the first time, the vast penthouse felt like a home. But peace didn't last. Weeks later, a grainy photo surfaced online, Ella leaving Jackson's building with Leo in her arms. Headlines screamed about the tech mogul's mystery blonde. Social media speculated cruelly, calling her a gold digger, accusing her of scheming. Ella trembled as she read the comments. By the time Jackson rushed home from his office, she was already packing Leo's things. She placed the key he'd given her on the table and told him quietly, "No need to wait. I understand." She walked out despite his protests, leaving Jackson holding a crying Leo, realizing his carefully built fortress was emptier than ever. The days that followed were brutal. Leo cried constantly, refusing to eat or sleep. Jackson tried every nanny he could find, but none of them worked. His son rejected everyone but the woman who had left. Late one night, desperate and exhausted, Jackson opened the penthouse security footage. He watched Ella on the screen, playing peekaboo with Leo, reading softly to him, rocking him to sleep. In clip after clip, her presence filled the home with a warmth he hadn't known he was missing. And as he sat there with his son restless in his arms, Jackson realized it wasn't just Leo who needed her.